All of you name it. Gary has written a book on it. And in addition to what he's done for National Geographic, so Gary is the president and CEO of San Diego Humane Society. And we are an open admission shelter that takes in about 50,000 animals a year at this point. 36,000 or so of those animals are companion animals. So dogs and cats, we see a lot of them. And so not just does Gary write about them, he actually lives and breathes this every day in managing one of the largest shelters in the country. He's also a veterinarian. And we also, just in terms of who we have on this call, so we have Amanda Kowalski with us, who is the director of our behavior and training programs. And so Amanda and her team work with 36,000 animals a year and getting them ready to go into new homes, to make them successful in those new homes. And they see, you name a behavioral problem, Amanda has seen it. And Amanda, I'm gonna go ahead and say Amanda has seen it and she's also fixed it. So we look forward to being able to hear her be able to chime in tonight on some of the questions and some of the discussion that we're gonna have. But to kick things off, what I want to do is make sure that Gary has a little bit of time, if he wants to say anything more about Mitchell, to be able to do that, because Mitchell will steal the whole show. This is something we've learned at San Diego Humane Society. Once you have a puppy on screen, no one's paying attention to anything else. So Gary, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk a little bit about Mitchell there and to maybe give a little bit of a high level overview of your books, and then we'll get into the question and answer session in a little more detail.
Oh my gosh, and he's getting tired. He's getting past Mitchell's bedtime. Uh, and I have Tess here, who's our puppy wrangler. Thank you for coming in, Tess, to wrangle the puppies. So Mitchell's one of 6 puppies. We have his mom too. And they came to us. His mom actually, we found her in some pretty bad condition a couple months ago. She was pregnant. She had 7 puppies. Mitchell's one of the 7. And we've got quite a few really great stories with these guys. The mom's doing well now. She'll be up for adoption very soon. She was very shy. I think she might have actually worked with Amanda's team just so that we can get her back out to a new home. But Mitchell's one of the pups, and they're hound mixes. And I don't know how this little Schnauzer Spaniel thing ended up with the rest of them, but he's really cute. So this is the reason for these books. And so it's a great segue. I want to use Mitchell as this is the point. So you need one of these if you don't have one already. To get through COVID properly, we all need one of these guys. So we want to make sure that they're healthy and happy in your homes and they're not actually adding to stress. And that's where the training and behavior work comes in. But honestly, if you don't have a dog yet, or a cat, or a rabbit, or a chinchilla, this is the time to get one. So I'm going to hand Mitchell back to Tess. Because
Gary, I didn't want you to leave anything out. I mean, we have pigs, and we have goats, and we have horses.
I'm going to try to watch. What's that, Brian?
I was saying we have goats and pigs and horses, but we'll focus tonight on dog and cat because those books haven't come out yet.
No, they haven't.
How to treat your pig.
Anyway, all right. So Mitchell's the reason. So thank you, Julie, for having all of us tonight for this book event. And it really, for us, this is a labor of love. We obviously love animals. San Diego Humane, as Brian mentioned, is an enormous shelter. We're really, very honored to be able to take care of animals here in San Diego County, but we want to make sure that people not just here, this is the reason also for the books, that people are also able to take care of their animals everywhere else. So get a lot of email from people across the country based on the books with questions about behavior. Most of the time, I call Amanda. Amanda's trained me well, so sometimes I can actually answer these questions. But it's really been a labor of love. So let me actually just share the screen really quickly. And hold on one second. Go through a few things. It's very, very difficult to actually, wait a minute. I'm just the worst at this, even after 8 months of doing it. Hold on one second. There we go. It's very difficult to actually have talk about a book without seeing people in person who may have the book. There we go. And this is basically, rather than doing a book reading, these aren't exactly books that you could do a book reading necessarily from. So this is going to be hopefully fun tonight. We want to really go over why we train animals, what animals are thinking when we're training them, how animals see the world, how we can actually speak better about animals. And let's see, I'm actually on the wrong slide. Hold on one second. There we go.
Well,
Okay.
Gary, that slide did not move for
It didn't
us.
move at all. All right. Hopefully we are better at, there we go. Got it. All right. Hopefully we're better at actually training animals than being trained how to use Zoom. So basically the whole premise is that we want to be able to read animals. They're really great at reading us and at speaking our language, even when they can't speak. We're not so great about actually speaking theirs. So the point is to actually do everything that we do with positive reinforcement and really try to get into an animal's mind before we expect anything of that animal. And the best way to have a successful, wonderful relationship with animals is actually to be able to train them and have them be safe and great companions and parts of our family. So, which we, of course, at San Diego Humane believe deeply that they are. And I'm sure most people listening to this tonight feel the same way. So these first two books, the second two books on here, actually are the reason that Fetch and Pounce got developed 2 years ago. Fetch and Pounce are really the lab workshops for all of us that went through physics lab and chemistry lab and all of that with in terms of learning and putting into practice how to train animals. And that is Amanda and her team's specialty. Anybody that knows me and knows my dogs will actually question whether or not I can train any animal, but I know where to go for help to do it. And I also have learned a few things along the way, thankfully with some great colleagues that I've got here at San Diego Humane. But How to Speak Dog and How to Speak Cat were developed in 2012 and 2013 to actually help kids start to learn how to have safe relationships with dogs and cats. And they really are about reading body language and understanding what dogs and cats are actually trying to tell us so that we can safely train them. Everything I've learned has come from working in shelters for the last 20 years. And thankfully, I've got some great colleagues that are experts in this, and a little bit of that has hopefully rubbed off through the years. The book that you can see to the left of these two came out about 2 years ago, and that's a guide to pet behavior, and that's really where, sorry, pet health, behavior, and hopefully happiness, and that's really where my background comes into play as a veterinarian, and I hope that's a book that actually can help people to take better care of their animals in their homes, to learn how to go, where to go to adopt an animal. There's behavior issues in there as well. But the big behavior work really came out with these two books. And so let me tell you, here's why we really want to train animals. We want animals to be safe. We want to increase the bonding that we do with animals and they with us. And we want to provide enrichment for them. Because we know we can't just have animals that become part of our families and then go off to work. Remember the old days when we used to actually be able to do that? Our dogs would be at home all day for 8 or 9 hours, cats certainly for at least that amount of time. And we all know that it's not ideal for them. So some of the behaviors that we see or we used to see more of, separation anxiety, real anxiety and stress in animals, it's been changed completely, as have our lives been changed with what's happened with COVID. Now more and more people being with their animals, all of us with our animals. My dog right now is honestly quite literally with me 24 hours a day. We love that, but the dogs do too. So there are some issues that may come up from all of this. Some of our animals may be exhausted from being on all the time with us, from having kids at home. But in general, though, this is actually where their lives, and this has really been a good thing overall with our animals. And in the veterinary community, it's also led to some interesting repercussions where people actually are seeing their vet more often because they're noticing things about their animals that they might not have noticed at all, or even for weeks later because of being at work. So we have a more intimate bond with our animals. And the point of training, the point of looking at behavior is to increase that bond and make sure that we have safe relationships with our animals. So How to Speak Dog, How to Speak Cat, we're really all about speaking dog and cat. And really that really is decoding your dog. And same thing for cats, looking at times that they're actually happy to be interacting with us for training. These books actually were developed by National Geographic Kids, but they're really for whole families right now, especially in COVID. If looking for content to do with your kids, there's nothing better than for us adopting an animal from a shelter or a rescue group, having a new member of your family, and actually really getting your kids involved with you to train them. So that's really the best thing that you could ever do. So good signs and bad signs. We know when our dogs are ready to be trained, and like us, learning doesn't happen equally all during the day. There are times that animals are more receptive to learning. I think you'll agree, Amanda. And there are times when they don't want to at all. Cats will give us those signs as well. So understanding our dogs is really important. Looking at position of the tail, their head position, just their general demeanor. So these are just little excerpts from the book. So rather than doing a book reading, I'm just showing you a few of them. But we get into a lot about how animals learn, and dogs and cats, but I'm talking about dogs right here, do not learn necessarily by understanding what we want them to do. They learn by basically rote memorization, reward, cause and effect. I think we call that operant conditioning. And for animals, especially dogs, this is one of the most important things. So having your dog understand why you want your dog to do something, or why you don't want your dog to be barking every time the UPS driver comes up to your door, is something that we try to start with kids and have them realize that's not how they're going to learn. They'll learn from voice commands, from hand signals, from clicker training. Those are the things that dogs will learn. They'll learn because we keep reinforcing that something is a good behavior for them to do, and then we reward it. And that's really key. And you have to have good reflexes to do it. So we know dogs are actually an incredible creature. Thank heaven they are so motivated by food, because that's our best tool ever. Bribe, bribe, bribe. That's the best way to get a dog to learn. And thankfully, while these look like they're good enough for humans to eat, there are very appropriate things for dogs to eat. And I think Mandel will agree with me. Probably what's on this page by the layout editors of National Geographic may not be the best treats to use when you're training your dog. Much better to use small treats and to have a big bag of them with you. And honestly, there's nothing really better than maybe cut up natural balance or hot dogs or string cheese, but very small amounts of it. Maybe not these really high-end dog bakery items. Those are for a reward for later. Okay, now here's the last part I want to go over before we open up to questions. People have asked a lot of many times, can you even train a cat? Yes, you can train a cat, but what cats, and you actually, cats are very different than dogs. We say all the time, dogs have been with us for 14,000 to 20,000 years. Cats have been with us for maybe 6,000 to 8,000 years. Dogs came to us because they wanted to be near humans who provided warmth and food. And dogs actually, they've had double the amount of time basically to learn to be with us. Cats, having less of that time, are much less motivated by wanting to please us. Dogs have had much more time to be able to do that. I think we can actually debate whether cats will ever, another 10,000 years or more, want to please us. Dogs do. Cats want to please us if it pleases them, and that's a very different situation. But it does not at all mean that they don't learn and they can't be trained. They can very effectively. Especially with clicker training. So we could talk a little bit more about that, but you can actually train cats, and you can see how these layouts set up all of this as background. Really easy reading, but very good question to ask whether or not cats can be trained, and they all can. Again, you have to understand cats. Cats love to hunt. They also, in the wild, would be hunted themselves by larger predators, even by cats themselves. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge that cats also need to hide, and they need high places to retreat to. And really important, if you're going to interact with cats, know that their whole idea of fun is hunting. So those are part of the ways that we actually try to socialize them and work with them. And then finally, of course, reading cat body language is really important. We tell kids all the time, and some adults don't. While my dog will her whole life is about having her belly rubbed, for cats, that is probably the worst thing you can do to most cats. They will let you know. Do not rub their bellies. So understanding cat body language is really, really important. You can see on these pictures, the Halloween cat is down on the right-hand corner. That's pretty obvious how that cat is feeling. Probably not the time to actually start training your cat or the time to really pet your cat. Same with flattened ears and tail twitching. Tail twitching can be okay if it's slow, but not always. And it really probably isn't so great if it's fast. So anyway, these are just the basics of body language for cats. And then finally, this is just a shameless plug for other books. The Cat Breed Guide and Dog Breed Guide came out a few months ago. I think they'll also be at Warwick's. And also on the health book, there'll be a bookazine that'll be coming out in, which is really just a 95-page condensed version of the larger pet health guide. But why don't we open this up to questions and talk about dog and cat behavior and dog and cat training and anything that you want to hear about. Well, certainly my favorite thing is San Diego Humane Society, but I will stop sharing now and open up to questions.
So Gary, what I wanted to do, so we've got a couple questions coming in. And so for Susie, Erica, Nina, Nikki, and some of the other folks that have posed questions, we will get to those. I have seen them, but I did want to kind of come back to one of the central concepts of the book and just have you and maybe Amanda also jump in on addressing this concept, because you write in the books that there's no such thing as a bad dog or a bad cat. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that some of the folks that are with us on this call today are perhaps on this call or interested in your books because, you know, maybe they've had a dog or a cat before that they might describe as, if not a bad dog or cat, as maybe a bad dog or cat situationally. And I just wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit more about that concept, that there's no such thing as a bad dog or a cat, and then we'll jump into some of the more specific questions.
Yeah. You know, there is no such thing as a bad dog or cat. There's no question. Remember, again, animals learn. They don't necessarily always understand. Being bad or being good really is, I think it's equivalent to understanding. So animals that are acting in ways that we don't like, and Amanda, I'm sure you'll have more to say on this, they're not bad or good. Although my favorite thing to say is to ask my dog if she's a good girl. I don't know why we all do that. But there's no bad dog. There's only, or bad cat. There's only animals that we haven't communicated well with about how we want them to behave. What would you say, Amanda?
Yeah, I think that's a really a good way to put it, Gary, that, you know, a lot of our issues with our pets are because of misunderstandings and not being able to understand how they communicate and what they're telling us, you know. So if we're not recognizing, you know, the body language of a fearful dog or, you know, a dog who's scared or a cat who's scared, then there's no way for us to help that animal. And then a lot of big misunderstandings happen, you know, and so we just kind of misinterpret maybe what their actions are or why they did a certain behavior.
Yep. You know what, Brian, if I could interrupt your questions for a second, I wonder, Amanda, could you talk a little bit about what COVID has done to the behavior department here and how you're doing virtual consults and classes for people that are with their animals?
You know, what's actually really interesting about that, so we are doing virtual classes, which has been really great. So we've been able to get right online and offer a variety still of classes, ranging from, you know, puppy socialization and isolation. So tips for, you know, raising your puppy and your kitten during this crazy time where we can't be in person, to basic manners classes, to even specialty classes. And I have to say, for the specialty classes, specifically for our reactive rovers, so the dogs who are, you know, barking and growling and lunging at the end of the leash, this has been the best learning environment for them. So you mentioned before, you know, like where and when to train, you know, your dog. And for some, you know, some behavior, problem behaviors you may be experiencing, doing it at home under the guidance of, you know, a trainer, and the support of the rest of the class, and knowing that you're not the only pet parent going through that, has been really nice for the students to experience.
So you're setting up support groups for dogs and cats
essentially.
well. Okay.
And Gary, I appreciate the fact that you're like, Brian, I'm going to see if I can interrupt your questions. I'm just going to go right to Amanda.
Okay, right.
So I'm gonna take that back from Gary. I'm gonna take the ball back, and because we have actually a number of questions that are coming in, and I assume that at some point, people may want to get back to election coverage or something that's far less interesting than what we're doing here. But let's jump to a couple of questions. So one of the first questions that came out was from Susie, who asked about what is a good age to introduce a puppy to our family. So obviously a question on many people's minds that have kids and are thinking about getting an animal. So what are your thoughts on what's a good age to bring a puppy into their world?
A good age for the kids or the good age for the puppy?
Right.
Well, Amanda, why don't you expound on that?
Well, generally, bringing a puppy on, a puppy who is about 8 weeks old, I think is a really great age to bring them on. So we're just getting them when they've been essentially weaned from their siblings and from their mother, where they've had that opportunity to actually learn a lot of really good behaviors and control with their mouths, things that will help them develop into a really well-rounded adult dog. The other thing, though, that it allows us to do at that age is it's still their critical socialization period. So from about that 8 weeks where they come into our home to about 12 to 16 weeks is our opportunity to socialize them and provide them with a lot of really quality, positive interactions with going outside and going for walks and car rides and meeting other adult dogs who are great with dogs and other kids. And so being able to put the work in and help them during that socialization time, I think that's a great age to start. It's a lot of work, that's for sure, especially if you have kiddos at home. But
it's so rewarding.
But exactly, that you finished my sentence, Gary.
Oh, really? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I think we tend to do that.
Yes, we do.
But it's so rewarding, So I think, 8 weeks old, that's at least, I love to raise puppies. So that's the age that I would bring them in.
It's phenomenal. And then the age that we actually recommend that people think about adopting, what the age of their kids would probably be 5 years old, roughly. But there's exceptions to that. And we know lots of families who bring kids in at, they've got toddlers, and that's certainly fine. We just want you to be safe with the new animals and the animals to be safe with the toddler.
I remember before I had, my daughter, I went to a class at San Diego Humane Society, and the trainer said that until the age of 5, a child cannot be a friend to a dog. A dog can be a friend to the child, but the child cannot be a friend to the dog because they just don't have the capacity to understand really what the dog's needs are. And that's always stuck with me. But I wanted to actually build on that question and say, Amanda, for anybody that is bringing an animal into their life right now, and I realize times of COVID is a little bit different, in terms of classes or training resources, other than Fetch and Pounce, of course, which we hope that everyone will buy 12 to 40 copies of by the end of this call, all from Warwick's. But aside from those, what are some other resources that you might be able to quickly point people to in terms of classes or online resources?
Well, classes, I would have to default to us. We offer a variety of classes. We actually have about 55 different types of classes that we offer to pet parents. So for dogs and for cats. We actually offer cat training class as well, kitten kindergarten classes to help with socialization, as well as adult cat training classes. And, that's the one thing that I didn't say earlier was how this, moving everything virtually has helped us to develop adult cat classes so that we can help pet parents really develop their cats into well-rounded cats.
Great. So what I want to do now, I'm going to switch over to a question that came in from Janice. And since you were touching on cat classes and even the concept of cat training, I know. So for those of you that heard, when Gary was talking, if you wait about 4,000 to 6,000 years, cats will be at the point that dogs are
Yes.
now in terms of their level of sort of domestication in our lives. So it's just, in current parlance, I think we say that's just around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with that, I want to ask, so Janice asked a question of how do you stop a cat from counter surfing?
Oh,
Gary or Amanda, I will throw that question to you because I have no idea how to do that.
Okay, so
okay.
can I just add I think we really just don't give cats enough credit. Did you
Right.
know that cats were trained to be in the CIA as like spies? So I think it's actually really fascinating, some of the history with our cats. So
Amanda, I think we assume that all cats are spies.
well, they are, and we definitely capitalized it in the 60s with them, but we definitely don't give them enough credit.
Right.
And it's actually a ton of fun to train the cats. But as far as counter surfing, Gary, do you want to take it, or do you
Oh
want
no,
me to?
you can have that one. Yeah, I think we'll say the same thing though.
So, you know, a lot of the counter surfing behaviors have to do with just kind of managing the environment too, and managing the space. But one of the things that I like to teach cats as well as dogs who have tendencies to counter surf and jump up for the food is to teach them to sit on the ground. And the more that we actually teach them to sit and reward them for being off the counters, and just managing what's on the counters as well, really helps with that issue. So one thing that you can do is you can get a little fancy and get a special mat or a blanket, and teach them to stay in a particular spot. So especially if you're in the kitchen and you're cooking and you don't want the cat to jump up on the counter, having them sit in that spot and rewarding for them in that spot while you're cooking will increase that behavior and diminish how much they go on the counter.
Yeah, and that's always with reward. So
Yes.
that's exactly. So
Yes.
giving all animals, whether it's a cat or a dog, something to motivate them to actually do a behavior that we prefer. That's really the trick to everything that we talk about with training our pets. And cats are I hope nobody goes away from tonight thinking that cats are difficult to train. We have to do it when they are receptive to it. And we have to recognize that puppies and kittens may only have 3 to 5 minutes of attention span. Shoot, I think people have about that much right now during COVID, but that rewarding them for behaviors that we prefer is the way to change all of the behaviors that they do that we may not like. There are some aversive techniques too for cats that go on countertops, spreading out aluminum foil, something like that, but we actually don't. It's much better to do what Amanda said, and that's actually to give them something that we prefer them to do and reward them for it.
All right, so now I'm gonna transfer us over to a question that you've probably heard once or twice before. I think it's a pretty standard issue that a lot of folks have, but we have a question about, my dog barks all the time. It's barking at the UPS driver, it's barking at other folks that are coming by. What can we do to stop a dog from barking? Carol, we will try and get that addressed for you. Why don't we, Gary, it looks like you were ready to pounce on that question. So we'll go ahead and throw that to you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very good, Brian. Yeah, well, I think the first thing that we want to make sure is that animals have the mental stimulation that we need them to have and the physical stimulation. So first of all, the best dog in the world is a tired dog, as long as we actually reward them by getting the exercise that they need, giving them enough enrichment so that we're not dealing with a dog plus frustration, because that's really part of the key here. As far as actually training your animals not to, I'm going to tell you what you shouldn't do, and then why don't we have Amanda tell you what you should do. First of all, never yell at your dog for barking at the UPS man, because it's not going to help at all. All you're doing is joining the chorus. So for dogs, if we start yelling at them, we're barking as well at the UPS man. So that's not going to help at all. So what I would say to start the solution conversation is, first of all, get as much exercise as you can into that dog so that we're not dealing with dog plus frustration. And then don't yell at your dog to correct him or her for barking at anybody coming to the door. What would you add, Amanda?
Yeah, barking can be such like a complex thing because dogs bark for so many different reasons, right? And so if your dog is barking at the UPS man, maybe he's barking because he just wants to alert you that, you know, the UPS man is here and he's got an Amazon package for you or something, you know. He could also be barking because maybe he's terrified of this strange person who just drops off boxes and then leaves is coming up to the door, you know. And so kind of understanding where your dog is coming from, I think just provides you with a little bit of perspective on, you know, maybe how to address the issue. But another thing that you can do is if you're there and you're there while you're getting a UPS package, is maybe putting the dog in a different, you know, a different room so that he's not practicing the behavior. So if you know that you're getting a package, having them in a separate room, have them, you know, in a separate room, maybe enjoying a Kong or another tasty treat so that they could be a little distracted during that time. And again, it stops them from practicing the behavior and getting better at it. The other thing that you can do is just pair some really tasty treats with the UPS man. So if you're getting a lot of packages, every time you have a UPS man or even another, you know, maybe the mailman coming to the door or somebody's dropping off a paper, pair it with treats, and over time, they learn to anticipate good things with the UPS driver or the stranger or the mailman or whoever it is coming over. So I actually, you can't see it on this video, but I'm actually doing this right now. So I've been cutting up as we've been talking. I've got some treats and I've been cutting them up into smaller pieces. And I have my dog that's laying right next to me on the ground here. And every so often I'm just dropping him a treat because there's actually a lot of activity happening outside my home right now. And he tends to bark at that stuff. So I've been practicing on keeping him quiet during this.
That is excellent.
And
that's how good Amanda is at this.
She's very good at this. We don't even know she's training a dog and she's doing it. Talk about multitasking. The only thing I would add to that, and what do you think about this, Amanda? You would also probably say, I already know because you've told me this. While you're giving the treats and pairing treats with the UPS man, how about adding lie down on your bed at the same time? So that when your dog is doing this, you're actually lying, he's going to his bed, and then the barking, the treat, and then hopefully modifying the behavior and replacing with something better.
Absolutely. And you know what, for a dog who's just starting out, maybe that's not where they're at. So just pairing them in the beginning and then working up to that. Maybe it's a sit first, then it's a go, you know, a lie down on your mat, and it gets them further away from the door. So it really, you start kind of where your dog is at, but that's a great suggestion, Gary.
Fantastic. So let's keep going on the vein of reasonably typical dog behaviors.
Ryan, I wanted to add though, I'm currently now training sea lions while I'm having this conversation.
Excellent.
There we go. Want to up the game, Amanda.
We'll prepare that. That'll be Gary's next book. Yeah. So what we've had come in. So Anne-Marie asked a question of how to stop her puppy from biting furniture and walls. Walls is an exciting one because I don't know if that's sort of the typical bit. Furniture I know is. We also had another similar question that came in from Erica about how to get their pup to stop play biting. It will listen to the adults, but not to the kids when the kids are correcting the pup. So you've got sort of two-pronged question about stopping, you know, sort of destructive behaviors of furniture, walls. I'm going to guess that's going to extend to shoes and the like. And then the next behavior is how to get the dog to actually listen to the kids when they're correcting an animal to stop biting. So two-part question. Let's go ahead and why don't we start with Amanda on this one, and then we'll kick that to Gary.
Okay. So when I'm solving behavior problems, I like to start by thinking about, first of all, what do I want the dog to do instead? So instead of the behavior that I'm seeing, what do I want them to do instead? So if the dog is chewing on the wall, and okay, I have to admit that even as a dog trainer, Mozart as a puppy, that's the name of my dog. Actually behind me, again, if you could just see behind me, there's a hole in the wall from when he was a puppy because he did the same thing. So I can completely relate to this question. And in that moment, I had to step back and think, what do I want him to do instead of chewing on the wall? So one, I managed the situation by not giving him access to that area because he just wanted to keep going back there, you know. And then I found other things that he can chew on. So puppies, you know, especially during a certain age, their teeth are hurting, they're teething, you know, and they're chewing because it makes them feel a little bit better. But also dogs are just they like to explore their environments with their mouth, right? So finding appropriate bones or toys or Kongs, you can freeze them. That helps them feel a little bit better, and giving that to them instead really helps. And you just kind of have to manage to the environment as well so that they don't have access to those places. Gary, would you add anything?
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I would add to that is acceptance. There are just true realities about animals. Puppies chew. Puppies are going to destroy your life when you start with a puppy. But it is, as Amanda said, it is worth it because they give so much back. But really accepting that puppies chew, they'll have accidents. So avoid the stress in your life by not letting the puppy into an area where he can eat the wall or he can take down the bathroom. You want to make sure that you actually minimize the opportunities that they get to do their natural behaviors. So knowing what the natural behaviors are is a huge help to accepting what you can't change and working with what you can. And the only thing I'd say, the complication on that question really is how to get a puppy or a cat, a dog or a cat, to listen to the non-authoritative voice in the house. And that is a hard one. So I will actually, what I would say is a couple things. The bond between that person and that dog is more important than the quote unquote authority. We don't actually talk about alpha anything with dogs at this point in animal behavior, really. But it's really about that bond and having that dog listen to the person that he or she is bonded with. What would you add about helping kids, Amanda, be respected during training?
You know, getting kids involved in training, I think is really, really great. One thing I do ask that when kids are involved, that the parents are also kind of standing nearby and getting involved as well. Because there's also some expectations that we have to have on our kids that they may not be able to handle that situation. Definitely knowing from working with my niece and nephew who are just full of energy. One is 4.5 and the other is 7, and sometimes just even how excited they can be in the way that they interact with the dog and maybe say no or stop. It's the dog doesn't understand English, right? So they don't know that they're saying stop and what that means. And so just their movements, and how excited they could be in that situation just eggs the dog on, and the dog completely ignores it. So again, in those situations, teaching the dog to sit or do something else, or have the kids pass a toy to the dog if the dog is mouthing the children, and then having the parents step into and maybe just separate the dog from the kids.
That's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. Parents have to be on standby with kids training dogs or cats. There's no question. We actually talk about that considerably in the books. This isn't here. Take this to your 6-year-old. Take the book and start training your dog. So if your dog's not listening to your child, help by reinforcing what your child is trying to communicate to the dog.
Great. And so we just had a new question come in that I also think is one that certainly a lot of people have to deal with and think about from time to time. So I want to make sure that we actually ask this question of both of you, which is how to introduce an older or a new dog into an existing home with a dog or dogs. How do you introduce a dog into that new pack? So what are some tips to make that introduction successful?
Patience. Wouldn't you say, Amanda? Patience and safety. That has to be the first thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Be patient, take it slow. You know, if you're bringing home a new dog, I think it's really great to have them meet outside on just kind of some neutral territory, you know, away
Mhm.
from the house, maybe at a park, go for a walk, let them interact with each other, bring them in the house together, make sure that, you know, again, a lot of training and just managing behaviors is managing the environment as well. And so making sure that, especially if these dogs are completely new to each other, managing resources that are in the house, making sure toys are up, toys are put away, you know, food bowls aren't just, you know, out, making sure that you're managing that space, beds, things like that. Not that the beds need to be away or out, but just keeping in mind that those are all things where conflict can arise, especially for new dogs that are just getting to learn to live with each other. And so managing those spaces, taking time, um, uh, I
Mhm.
think those are other things, and doing the intros outside of the house as well.
And using a leash, just
Yeah,
in case. Just in
yeah.
case. Do not just have a free for all happen. You don't want a roller derby happening with medical complications. So we always do leashes. We have a lot of dogs we place here every year, and there used to be a time where anybody that would adopt would have to do a dog to dog interaction with their own family member dog before they could adopt another dog. That doesn't happen all the time anymore, and it certainly doesn't happen in COVID. But what we do try to do is make sure that every member of the family is safe, the dogs as well as the humans, of course. So definitely go slow, go with leashes first, make sure everybody sniffs and everything is comfortable before you just assume that everybody's going to get along. And if I could, Brian, why don't we start talking a little bit about cats? Because that comes up even more often. Bringing in a new cat into a home environment is sometimes more difficult than bringing in, actually, it's often, no, I'll just say this straight out. It is always more difficult to bring a cat into an environment with another cat. So we get a lot of questions during the year about how to have cats get along with each other when we're introducing a new cat. So I'll start it off, and Amanda, why don't you add to it? Obviously, every cat, every animal in a home needs to have a safe space. So there has to be a place to retreat to. And again, remember, cats, as well as being predators, often in the wild would be prey. So they need a safe place to hide. So you want to make sure that cats always have their own place to retreat to. And then what we would recommend is just doing it very slowly, being patient, keeping a new cat in another room for a while. And it really has to be on your home cat's terms before we can get those cats together. There's a lot more tricks. I think, Amanda, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sometimes we like to suggest that you set up, if you have a spare bedroom or
Mhm.
bathroom, or even just setting up, you know, a space using an X pen or an exercise pen, where the new cat can have some privacy, and have them away from the resident cat. The resident cat will definitely be able to smell them in the environment,
Yeah.
you know, especially through the door. We like to do towel or blanket swapping every few days, so that the cats can smell each other, but at a distance, and just gradually increasing the kind of interactions that they have
Mhm.
over time. So patience definitely is another thing with cat introductions.
And in only a short 4 to 5 thousand years, the cats will actually be able to be introduced together. That's all it will
Right.
take.
Exactly. Cat behavior, piece of cake.
Yep.
Everybody's got that down, right?
Right.
So what I thought I would do is actually, why don't we end sort of the official portion of this on one last cat question? I know there were a couple of questions that came in, but I believe this was essentially advertised at kind of a 30 to 40-minute chat, and we're at, about 47 minutes or so. But let's do one more cat question that came in from Nikki, and this might be able to be expanded on to just generally destructive behaviors from cats. But how do you stop a cat from shredding toilet paper? Or perhaps shredding couches or other things that are in your house too, that are maybe of a little more importance to you than your toilet paper in non-COVID times?
Yeah, in non-COVID times, right. Toilet paper is precious right now. I'll start it off, Amanda. I think, first
Okay.
of all, again, reality check. Cats have to shred. They have to shred. They have to use their claws. Please, please, please do not ever declaw your cats. Even though many people may have cats, fewer now that are declawed, but we certainly don't think that's a very good thing to do to cats in any circumstance. But cats need to claw, they need to scratch, they need to shred. The real trick is give them something else to do it with, rather than your sofa or your fought over 24 pack of Charmin that you just brought back from Costco. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sisal pads
Mhm.
or, sisal scratching posts are, there was a study that was done that cats actually prefer sisal, that texture, more than other textures. So looking into getting some sisal scratching posts or scratching pads. And you can even set it up in the area where they do like to scratch. The thing about scratching, it's communication, right? They have scent glands between their paw pads, and so they're leaving their scent in those areas. And like Gary said, it's a natural behavior. They're going to scratch, and so just provide them with the appropriate outlet for it. And you can start it off by putting it in the area where they do like to scratch, so they're just more likely to go there as well. But I always recommend sisal. They love it. The cats at the behavior center get them, and they appreciate them.
And different substrates. Yeah, I didn't know about the sisal. That's excellent. But also different shapes of scratching devices. There's the flat ones like scratching pads, and there's vertical ones. And just know that your cat's gonna want to do that. This is not the time when you get a new cat or you get a kitten to go to Ethan Allen and refurnish your living room. That's just reality. Don't do it now. You can do it later. But and please, 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 nobody should declaw their cats ever.
And yeah, I mean, definitely you could, Gary, I think that's a good tip. So if you're thinking about bringing any new animal into your life, it's probably better to get the $50 couch off Craigslist than maybe to go shop for some expensive furniture. So that's just an extra pro tip on behalf of, tonight's moderator for everyone out there. What I think I'm going to do, even though I appreciate all of the questions that have come in, but to allow folks to have dinner or to get back to their evenings and other things, what I think I'm going to do is say, Gary and Amanda, thank you both. Gary, I believe that you have something that you want to share with the folks that have joined tonight, and I think we've got some time to do that. So why don't I hand it over to you to chat a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. For us here at San Diego Humane, it's been quite a year, like it has for everybody. But we are fortunate that we're in a community that cares so much about animals, that there's still support for the shelter, not just ours, but all the shelters in San Diego County. We're part of a coalition of 8 of them, and we serve 14 cities right now for their animal services as well. But for us, having the support of the community has been really important. Of course, it's always important, but now especially during COVID. So we had a little event well, not even a month ago, called our Fur Ball. And this would have been our 34th annual Fur Ball. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. And like every other fundraiser, every other event, it could not happen this year. So instead, what we did was try to engage our community to continue to support the cause, support the 50,000 animals we'll take care of, support some of the really incredible life-saving achievements that have happened here at San Diego Humane. And we would really love to share with you the video that we made about the last year of work here at San Diego Humane Society. So if we can get that to work, we hope that you enjoy it. And we'll just have you bear with us for about 3 minutes for our video. And I don't know if we have sound, Mary Beth.
No sound.
Of course, it worked in the rehearsal.
We totally nailed that in the rehearsal.
We did.
100% nailed it. It doesn't look like we nailed it in this attempt. So
No.
what I'll say is what the video really does is about 3 minutes of telling the story of San Diego Humane Society. For everybody that is joining us tonight, you can find it on YouTube. I believe if you search Furball San Diego Humane Society 2020 video, hopefully you can do that. We're sorry that we could not get that to Gary tonight.
Look at her.
Got it. Okay.
We needed Julie to come back.
I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue. And I will stay with you. We'll make it to the other side like lovers do. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours to, until I can wait for you. I'll wait for you. 'Cause I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath, even when they say there's nothing left, so don't give up on. I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even when nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily, so don't give up on me. Now I'll hold on to you. No matter what this world will throw, it won't shake me loose. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours to, until I can wait for you. I'll wait for you. 'Cause I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath, even when they say there's nothing left, so don't give up on. I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even when nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily, so don't give up on me. I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue.
The second time's a charm.
Absolutely.
That was absolutely amazing. And they say that animals are our angels, but you all and the work that you all are doing, you all are angels. I mean, that is amazing. And I'm hoping somebody from your team can maybe pop into the comment section a link that if people want to donate or support you, that there's something that we can pop into that comment section.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie. We can't accept any of that.
Oh,
no.
Oh, you can't.
No, I'm kidding. That was
Oh,
complete
I was
sarcasm.
like, what the hell?
No,
You
we
got
love
me.
that.
You got
We
me.
love that.
We can take care of that. One of the things also that I know was put in there, the link to that video was also put into the comments section. So if anybody
Excellent.
wants to share that with their friends or watch it, once or 1,000 more times, they can do that as well. So I would assume that we have somebody working on getting a link in there right now.
Perfect.
And I believe we've got that. So we're all set. So Julie, thank
Perfect.
you for that suggestion.
Yeah, because I know that we're here for a book, and I know that we've got the book links up there, and you and everybody that's out there watching, you can order all of Gary's books from us. Yes, there is going to be a section in for Gary at the stores. Right. So, and
Amanda.
And I was cracking up. You guys had me just, I mean, some of the things, and you know what I really appreciated about tonight was you gave really concrete information to people. And I think that that's what these Zoom meetings, and, you know, I know that when we meet in person at the store, that these events are like that too. So that's just, I love that about this. But your comment about puppies are going to destroy your life almost made me fall back in my chair. Because it's so true. But we love them dearly. Yeah, but we love them.
They're also going to
dearly.
enhance your life.
Exactly. Oh, no question about it. And there's nothing better than. So thank you all for being with us tonight. And all of the links will be, this will reside on Warwick's Facebook page. We've also recorded it, so you all can share it and spread the love and keep doing the good work. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Julie, for having us. Thank you, Warwick. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Warwick, and thank heaven for bookstores like yours. They're few and far between, but yours is where our heart is.
Thank you, as you are ours. So with that, we will sign off from Facebook. So thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.